Welcome back to Leeds Lately. Today we're of course going to be talking about the dreaded playoff final. Leeds United versus Southampton on Sunday, just a few days away now. And you know I had to come back with a tactical preview. I've been very, very busy of late, but I've got to come in with a tactical preview of this game. So make sure you hit that like button down below and of course hit that big red button because we're trying to get to 8,000 subs. But let's launch straight into it. What do we need to be worried about and what does Southampton need to worry about? So, a few of you will be fan favourites of the tactics board, and that, of course, has come back out today. First thing I want to mention is just the formations. I think Leeds are going to go again with a 4-2-3-1. It's what we've been playing all season. It's what suited us really well. You could say that there's an argument to go 4-3-3, like what we did against Norwich, and try and keep it tight because they're going to have three in their midfield. But I do think that it's a risk. Going into a playoff final and changing to a formation that you've only played once this season and not even in the league is a risky strategy. And I think we played so well against Norwich in the way that we set up then that he's going to go with an unchanged team. So I think Leeds are going to go with that 4-2-3-1, and I think it's going to be Joel Piroux through the middle, and I think you're going to get Nonto, Somerville out wide, Jorginho in here. You're going to have Gruev, Kamara, then you're going to have right back will probably be Archie Gray, Rodon, Ampadu, and Firpo, and Meslier in goal, of course. I think that is going to be the unchanged lineup. I think for Southampton, they are going to be playing a 4-3-3. It's pretty much what they've been playing all season. It's what they played against West Brom. Interchangeable forwards at times. Adam Armstrong a lot of the time plays through the middle, but he's also very interchangeable with Che Adams when they swap out. So Adam Armstrong is a bit of a danger man for them. But now, those of you who've sort of kept a little bit of an eye on Southampton this season will know who I'm going to say is the danger man here. But a lot of you may be surprised to know that it's their right back, Kyle Walker-Peters. Now, people have identified Kyle Walker-Peters this season as a player who probably is too good for the Championship. He was a decent fullback in the Premier League, and he's come down and he's been excellent under Russell Martin. He loves to get forward, and think this is going to be Southampton's greatest strength and their greatest weakness at the same time. So let's get into it. So at some point in the game, you could see something a little bit like this. Now, when Southampton are on the attack, Kyle Walker-Peters is going to go as high and wide as possible at times, but he can also come inside as well. And we've seen against Leeds, there was actually moments where he took the ball from right back and he charged all the way through the midfield. There was also the second goal that we conceded against them on the final day of the season where Kyle Walker-Peters was way up here, did Firpo to be able to come inside and drop the ball off for Smallbone, who'd made a run from the midfield. So these are some of the things that I'm talking about here. Kyle Walker-Peters is a dangerous player, and he is going to be wanting to overlap and wanting to underlap and wanting to basically just get forward in any way possible at any point, as much as he can, because he loves to get forward. He loves an assist, he loves a goal. Kyle Walker-Peters is their danger man, and what he does is a bit similar to what Leeds actually want to do in terms of pushing Firpo forward on one side and potentially Gray forward on another, and creating that overload. So what they want to do is try and isolate Firpo out here, which I must say they did quite well against us on the final day of the season. It's something that we're going to have to combat. But like I say, Kyle Walker-Peters likes to make his run outside, which allows somebody, whoever is on the wing, potentially Adam Armstrong as well, to drift inside. And if you've got somebody like Smallbone here, Flynn Downs gives him an option. What it does is it isolates Firpo here. So if you go for a 1-2 here, Firpo gets dragged out and the ball goes back and down the line, and Kyle Walker-Peters is in behind. And Firpo's always going to be at a disadvantage in that point of view because he's always going to have a 2-on-1, a 3-on-1, a 3-on-2, unless Crescencio Somerville does the job that he's not known for. He's not known for his tracking back. He's known for his cutting forward, cutting inside, scoring goals. But what Crescencio Somerville needs to do, and it is imperative that he does this, is help a mate out. He's got to get back and make sure he's supporting Firpo. His man is Kyle Walker-Peters. He has to go with him. So if Kyle Walker-Peters has had a little... So say Bednarek plays it to Flynn Downs or Will Smallbone, whoever it might be, and Somerville sees that his man is going and he knows he can't get to this ball, he's going to have to mark that. He's going to have to go with the run. He's going to have to track back. And also what's going to have to happen is Ilya Gruev and Glenn Kamara are going to have to play their role in this as well, because Gruev, if he goes to the ball here, is always a potential of coming this way and in here, and that's when Kamara has to shuffle over. So what Leeds need to do, it's a very basic concept in football, but it's just track your runners. They have to track their runners. And this is, if you remember back, if you go after this and watch the highlights of the last game of the season, Leeds versus Southampton, 2-1 to Southampton, with their second goal, this is what I'm talking about, because Kyle Walker-Peters got all the way to here against Firpo. There was nobody else really around, and he skinned him. He came past him like this, he skinned him, and Ampadu and Rodon are marking their men here. But Smallbone made a run past Gruev all the way into the box, just get the ball and put it past Meslier there. Gruev, 10, 15 yards behind him, from memory at least, 10, 15 yards behind him, nowhere near getting to the ball, and that's because he didn't track his runner. So, like we say when we do the match reactions or whatever, Joe always says as well, a goal isn't just one player's fault. There's always a series of things that lead to that issue and that situation. And so for me, the main thing that we have to do is just mark properly. We have to track our runners. We have to have our midfielders. They have to be switched on. They have to follow their runners. Everybody, to a man, has to know exactly what their role is. And Farke will be telling them this and will be telling them who their man is, who to track. So Gruev will have Smallbone. Firpo will have Edozie or whoever is on that right wing, and of course Somerville will have to track back and get Walker-Peters as well. They'll know what their roles and responsibilities are. They have to execute them so much better than they did against Southampton in the last game of the season. Now, the other thing that we want to talk about, actually, before we go into the positives, let's have one more negative, right? One more negative. The first goal we conceded against Southampton, ball obviously got whipped into the box. It was cleared away here by Rodon, but it didn't go very far, and I think it was Downs was able to just hook a leg and play it backwards, right? And Southampton had a lot more players forward than that, and basically what happened was the ball got played to Che Adams. Sorry, that's the man, not the ball. The ball got played to Che Adams, and when he went to cut back inside, all the Leeds players ran to the centre, the penalty spot here, expecting the ball to go there. And when the ball went into the box, it went through them all. And Southampton, that's the player again, Southampton had like 4 players at the back post. So this is when the zonal marking has to be so much better. Ideally, you'd have one player trying to block the cross, right? You'd have another player spread out a little bit more like this. One here to block the passing run, one here to block the near post, and one here to block the far post. So then if the ball comes in, it's going to have to be a really good ball over the top of all of them to be able to score from there. And by that time, if it's a lofted ball, your Ampadu is able to get there and block it. So it's important that our zonal marking's right. It's important that when we think we've cleared the ball, we don't switch off for that split second like we did for that goal. Both of the goals against Southampton in the final day of the season were very, very avoidable. So we have to make sure we cut out those avoidable mistakes, and we were so much better at doing that in the Norwich home and away leg of just being so much more solid. So that's a good point for us to build off, a base for us to build off. Where I said that Southampton's greatest strength is also their greatest weakness is, of course, if you're pushing that many players forward, if you're playing that high of a press, you do leave yourself open at the back. And Southampton, if they are pushing forward their wingers, say you've got a situation like this where you've got a lot of players up in the box for Southampton and Leeds do manage to clear it and have one of those counter-attack situations which we are so good at, you've got space. You have space. Now, what's his face? Harwood Bellis is pretty quick, pretty mobile. Jan Bednarek is not the slowest player in the world, but he's not particularly, as you would say, maybe a Rolls Royce. He's not somebody who is going to cut everything out and be in the right position all the time. Hence, he wouldn't be playing in the Championship. So what you've got to look out for is these two and whether they go to the ball, whether they stay tight. But either way, they are going to leave gaps. And Leeds have to be so good on the counter-attack to exploit them. We saw against them that even though they beat us, and we would say as Leeds fans, you'd watch that game and go, we weren't very good. We made still plenty of chances to score in that game. You had Nonto cutting inside Ryan Manning and just opening up space for himself to get the ball into and get his shots away. You had Joel Peru's goal where we managed to get the ball in from the wing. It was cleared, and then Joel Peru was able to drop on it and just bang it into the back of the goal. We've got to be good on the counter-attack. We've got to be so switched on. All of their play nearly comes down the wings. Nearly all of their play comes down the wings. When you watch the highlights, when you watch them against any team, you'll see that pretty much all of it is down these channels, and they don't really play through the middle. But what that allows us to do is start our moves on the wings. We love the wings as well. So if the ball is played out wide here and Leeds win the ball back, you can instantly play it to a Nonto or somebody like that, one of your quickest players, to try and spring that counter-attack. So hopefully the fact that they play on the wing and we play on the wing will make for quite a good game in terms of opportunities for us to counter-attack them. The only other thing that I'm going to talk about here is the fact that they play 3 in midfield. Now, I'm not going to set this up in a 4-3-3 again, but you can imagine a 4-3-3, can't you? They have 3 in the midfield. We have 2 in terms of Gruev and Kamara, 2 actual out-and-out midfielders. But because they'll have Smallbone, Downs, and one other, it could be multiple players, but they'll have 3 in their midfield, and sometimes one of them will sit, sometimes one of them will go. They're all pretty much number 8s, and they can do both jobs. Leeds need to be aware of this and not allow them to overrun us in midfield. Now, if you are, like I said at the start, this goes back to what I said at the start, if you're going to play a 4-3-3, you're always going to have an extra man against a 4-2-3-1 in midfield. So if Leeds match them up, you add an extra man in midfield, but you potentially sacrifice a little bit going forward by playing Gray in the 10 rather than Jorginho. So I think he's going to go for the 4-2-3-1, but what I think it means is that Jorginho's going to have to do his defensive work as well. It's not going to be the most fun game in the world for Somerville, Nonto, Jorginho, because they are going to have to track back. They're going to have to do the dog work, get back in, help the fullbacks, help the midfield. Jorginho's going to have to come in. And you do see him doing it. You do see him dropping in and winning the ball and stuff. I can put this down now. You do see him coming in and getting the ball, helping out his midfield. He's got to make sure he does that. He's got to make sure he isn't despondent when he loses the ball and he goes back and he tracks his runners, because if he doesn't, then it creates an overload in midfield. Gruev gets pulled out, Kamara gets pulled out, and it allows them so much more space to play it into their front men down the wings, and we've got to try and stop that supply line so it doesn't even get to the stage where we're then saying that Somerville, Nonto have to track back, help out Gruev and Firpo, or Kamara and Gray, for example, on the right-hand side. So it's important that we try and stop them before they get going. But if they do get going and they do get into those positions that they love to get the ball into the box from, i.e. the wings, that we have enough players to track back. And then when we do break, we've got to be incisive, we've got to be penetrative, and we've got to be able to get that ball forward as fast as we can to exploit those gaps that will be left by their high-flying fullbacks. One last thing to mention is that they are a high-pressing team. I did mention that before, but what it'll mean for us is if we're able to bypass the press, that's obviously another chance that we can go and try and break. If we can get the ball through their press or over their press or around their press and able to break that first line, that's when you can start to turn teams around and get them running back to their own goal, get them panicking a little bit. So it's going to be a fantastic game of football. It always is in the playoff final. I hope I'm not cursing it by saying that, but I don't believe in that sort of thing anyway. But it's going to be live on Sunday, so make sure you come back to the channel for it, because I will be doing a watch along and a match reaction as well, whether it goes well or whether it goes badly. But we're all Leeds, aren't we? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.